Welcome to the Outlier Mindset Podcast, your guide for living a life by design. Here, we explore the journey of becoming an outlier, finding your purpose, mastering your mindset, optimizing your health, achieving financial freedom, and building a life centered around your passions. So tune in, transform, and thrive. Welcome to the Outlier Mindset. Let the journey begin. Welcome to the Outlier Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Rodman Schley, and in today's episode, we're diving deep into the critical connection between purpose and planning with Jaye Purpose, a purpose strategist and former firefighter with the United States Air Force. Jaye's unique D3 methodology helps individuals, particularly active duty military personnel and corporate leaders, uncover their life's purpose and navigate career transitions with clarity and confidence. Hey, Jaye, welcome to the show.
Absolutely, Rodman. Thank you for having me here. It's truly a privilege.
Oh, man. And I'm really excited about what we're going to be talking about today. We talk about purpose a lot on this podcast, but you are Jaye Purpose. You are all about purpose. This is one of your main things in life that you want to help people do is achieve and find that purpose. And I think we're going to have a really good conversation because one of the things I always tell entrepreneurs, people who are looking at being great in life, you always got to lead with purpose. I always feel like if you don't have that, if you don't have that purpose in your heart that you're ready to go after, how are you going to build a life around that?
Absolutely. I 1000% agree. I believe purpose is the foundation of everything that we're going to do in our lives. I also believe that if we do not find out what our purpose is, and we continue to go on throughout our lives, you're going to find yourself in a heap of trouble one day, eventually. So I believe it is paramount that we all spend the time to find out what our purpose is so that we can live a purpose-driven life to the best that we absolutely can.
No, I love that. And, you know, I know that the listeners are probably tired of me whipping out the statistic, but only 10% of people know what their purpose is, and only 5% are living it, which is just a pure tragedy to me. I feel like our days are so limited, our time is so limited, what we want to do, the time we have to do it is so limited, and we spend all this time doing stuff that's not meaningful to us, and we're building lives that aren't meant on what we were meant to be doing, and I just hate to see that for people. So what kind of things do people need to do to start? If they're sitting there going, how do I discover my purpose? What do I need to do to take those first steps to finding the purpose-driven journey?
Well, I'll tell you, Rodman, what I typically tell people, the first thing that you need to do is you need to build a mirror so that you can become aware of who you are spiritually and internally. So an analogy that I typically use is if you're a guy, you've typically shaved before. And if you're a female, you typically put on makeup at some point in your life. And whenever you do those activities, you always use a mirror. You would never shave without a mirror. It would be super uncomfortable. If you're a female, you would never put on makeup without using a mirror because it gives you immediate feedback. You can see exactly where you are and what you want to fix. And I believe when you're going to pursue living a purpose-driven life, you have to find a spiritual mirror so that you can see and become aware of who you are internally so you can make those changes and get that immediate feedback. And I believe one of the best ways to build that mirror is through documentation. I went through a journey myself a couple of years ago and I started journaling, and that was my form of documentation. And as I continued to journal throughout the years, what I realized is, as I look back on my journal, it became a mirror for my spirit. Just like we can see a physical representation of who we are when we look into a physical mirror, when we look into a spiritual mirror, we can see all of our beliefs, all of our limiting beliefs. We can see what our attitude is. We can see the past circumstances that shape that. And I believe the first step that you need to do is you need to document all those thoughts, all those beliefs. You need to get it on some form of documentation so that you can look at it and really see who you are inside.
So you're doing the work. I mean, a lot of people get up, we look in the mirror every morning, right? We see ourselves, we see a reflection of who we are on the outside, but this mirror you're talking about is going a little bit deeper. It's really taking a look at the essence of who we are, not just physically, but spiritually. Yeah.
Yes, and so I believe there's a certain way that you have to do it as well. I came across a book called The Artist's Way a while ago. It's written by Julia Cameron. And she has this formula for overcoming writer's block, and it's called morning pages. And the way that you use these morning pages is she has something called the streams of consciousness, which essentially is, it has one rule for whenever you're writing. And the rule is, once the pen touches the paper, you cannot stop writing until you filled up 3 pages. Which is tough, right? Because typically we have a lot of fears, we have a lot of thoughts that are preventing us from putting our true thoughts out on the paper. And what I found is when I journal in that fashion, it allows my true self to come out. It allows my true self to be seen. And when I go back and look at it, is when I actually found, oh, these are the limiting beliefs that are preventing me from having success in real estate. These are the limiting beliefs that are stopping me from having success in my marriage. And that was the very first step, was a documentation of who I am, so I can raise my self-awareness and see exactly how I've come to be where I am at this present moment.
You know, Jay, you came from the military background. I know you did some firefighting and such in the military. But in your journey, when was it that you believe that you found your purpose? When did you have that aha moment, or when did you do that work to really figure out what your purpose in life was?
That's a great question. It first started, I was at work one day, and we call them civilians, but they're just people who are not in the military, and they work alongside us. And typically the civilians have been at the fire department for 10, 20, 35 years. And there was 3 civilians that I was working with on a specific day, and they were nearing retirement. So they were in the kitchen talking about how much money they were going to make at their retirement, and how long they had been working on the job. And I was listening to them talk, and in that moment, I could see my next 40 to 50 years. Identical, like exactly what it will look like looking at them. And I just thought to myself, this, not that what they were doing and that their choice was bad, but this is not what I'm destined to be. I knew deep inside there was a calling for something different, for something more, for something that fulfilled me, for something that actually meant something to me. And that was when the journey began. And when I started, I'll tell you, it was pretty rough. I'm a very structured and logical guy, and I couldn't find anything anywhere that provided step-by-step instructions. How do I go about figuring out what my purpose is? So I went through a lot of struggle internally. I felt lost a lot of the times. And the reason it was very significant and it was so pressing on me at the time is because I was about to get out of the military. Or rather, it was coming up on the time for me to decide, do I stay in or do I get out? And when you have a big decision like that, weighing over your head, and then you don't really know what you want to do next, but you know that what you're doing right now isn't what you want to do, then what do you do? So as I went throughout my journey, there was a lot of struggle, there was a lot of doubt, but I found my way through journaling, through listening to a lot of different sermons, do a lot of prayer, a lot of meditation, and eventually the journaling was what really unlocked it for me. Once I was able to kind of build that mirror for myself and look at it and learn about different processes like Ikigai and learning about what your Dharma is, a lot of it just kind of fell into place.
Well, I feel like that's going to resonate with a lot of people too. I mean, there's so many people in life who are doing exactly that. They're going to a job that maybe they don't want to be working. They're going to spend their time doing things they don't want to be doing. They're living up to other people's expectations and not their own. And it's one of those things where you had that moment again, where you were looking at the people who had gone the entire path. And maybe that was their purpose. Maybe they were aligned perfectly. They're hitting retirement and, this is great. I love where I'm at. I love where I'm coming out of. But you had that moment, you sat there and said, wow, if this is my future, I don't think this resonates with me. I don't think this is what I'm about, who I'm about. But you still had to go do that work. And there's so many people sitting in those same shoes every single day going, I'm doing things that weren't meant for me. But for those folks, what would you tell them is the first thing that they should do? Where should they start if they're trying to break out of those patterns, if they're trying to break out of the current path that they're on?
That's another great question. I believe that you have to adopt what I call the purpose mindset. I believe you absolutely, positively have to change your beliefs. You have to find out what your beliefs are at the moment that are preventing you from living the life that you really want to live, the life that you are really destined to live. And you have to go through a mindset shift, because otherwise, as you attempt to transition into a better life, into a more fulfilling life, I can guarantee you that you're gonna hit a brick wall, and you're gonna have difficulty overcoming that obstacle. So the only way to get through it is to go through a mindset shift. And what I typically tell the people that I work with is, there's 5 different beliefs that make up what I call the purpose mindset, that you have to adopt these before you begin your journey of figuring out what your purpose is. Otherwise, you're going to meet failure. And just to be brief, I'll give you all 5 quickly. The first one is the belief that everything and everyone has purpose. The second one is that purpose is internal, not external. The third is that we already have all the resources inside of us that we need to live a purpose-driven life. The fourth principle is that purpose is the foundation for all plans. And then the fifth one is that the purpose for all mankind is to serve. So if you can adopt those 5 truly in your mindset, because most of us get those wrong, but if you can adopt all 5 of those internally, then you can begin the journey of self-discovery to figure out what your purpose is.
You are like speaking my love language today, Jay. I'm just going to tell you that right now. You and I are so aligned on how we think about purpose, but it's so important to always be leading with purpose. And you're right. If you don't have the right mindset for it, because so many people set off on the journey, but they don't have their minds right. And you're going to hit that wall. You're going to hit those obstacles. You're going to clip that hurdle every once in a while. And if you don't have your mindset right, and you're not prepared for that, you're just going to set yourself back. And you're going to feel like you failed, but you didn't really fail. You just clipped your toe. But if you got your mindset right on that journey, that's when you can get through those things. That's when you can forge ahead and really push toward what you want to be pushing towards.
I completely agree. With the mindset piece, I think it's just so hard because a lot of us, we've been living with our beliefs for our entire life, right? So when we realize, hey, I want to change, I want to make a transition, I need to make a transition, but how do I get unstuck? How do I get past the limiting beliefs that are preventing me? How do I get past the imposter syndrome? Because I've been me my whole life, and it's so significant to make that shift into the new mindset.
So what do people need to do, Jay? I mean, I know that like sometimes it just has to hurt so bad that it moves you into action. But there's a lot of people who just kind of go day by day by day, and then the next day goes by and the next day goes by. When you're going to make this shift, I mean, what do people really need? I know we got to get our mindset right, but what does it take to break out of that pattern? What is it, an event? Is it a piece of advice? Is it some key components to how you should be making the changes? What do we need to be doing to get out of that?
So I believe, and this is a concept that I came up with a while ago when I was writing my first book. I believe that we all have triggers throughout our lives. So I call them triggers. I believe there's 2 different types of triggers. So there's a more abrupt trigger, and then there is a gradual trigger. And I'll give you an example of both. So an abrupt trigger for me was when I was 16, my car got shot up at 16 years old. I went to a party. My parents told me, do not go to this party. You know, the guy's parents is not going to be there. You do not need to be at this party. I go anyways. And when I get to the party, I went with one of my family members, one of my cousins. And we get there, and we walk inside, and him and I, it's so packed inside, there's nowhere to stand, there's nowhere to sit, that we're sitting on top of a washer and a dryer. And all of a sudden, we hear gunshots. I remember I sat on top of the washer as the gunshots were still going off. Everybody around us just ran. I sat there. I got down after about 5 to 10 seconds, and I started walking outside. When I walked outside, as I crossed the threshold of, outside in the front door, I looked to my left, and I see my cousin that rode to the party with me. And he's crossing the threshold of the driveway and the garage. And as soon as I see him, he starts screaming at the top of his lungs. I look toward where he's looking at, and I see a body laying on the ground. But as I look up from the body, I see that my car has bullet holes all throughout it. All of the windows are shot out, and we start to hear police sirens. We're in a bad neighborhood. We're two young males, and we say we cannot be next to this body as the police get here. We're terrified. I'm scared. I'm nervous. So I open up my car door, and when I look inside, there's a bullet hole going through my headrest on the driver's side. And my immediate thought was, had I been in this car 5 minutes earlier, 2 minutes earlier, I would be dead. And then my second thought was this: I could easily be this guy that's on the ground right now. That event was an abrupt trigger that triggered me to say, why am I here? I just went through something that was so tragic, that was so eventful, that was so tough, even at such a young age. And it caused me to question, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? Who am I supposed to become? Now, there's also more gradual triggers. So I was in a car with my uncle when I was 19, and I had moved with him when I was about 17-ish after my car got shot up, because I would get into a lot of trouble. And I was telling him I thought I was so lucky because I got to live with him and my aunt. That completely changed my life. Things started changing for the better. And he was telling me that he didn't believe in luck. I don't believe that anything happens by coincidence, is what he's telling me. You're here for a reason. Like God brought you here for a reason. And I remember him saying that, and I sat there in the back seat holding back tears because I couldn't stop thinking about that bullet hole that was going through the headrest of my driver's seat, thinking, you know what? That's right. I am here for a reason, but what is it? So I believe most of us need to have moments like that. We need to have triggers that cause us to stop and say, I have been going throughout this routine, throughout this life, almost in a zombie-like state, day in and day out. But I understand that I'm here for a reason. But I've been so caught up in the routine, I've been so caught up in the day-to-day that I haven't taken the time and done the work, as you said, Rodman, to sit down and figure out why it is that I'm here. So we need to have those moments. Once you have one or two of those moments, you absolutely have to have something that you can revisit that can constantly wake you up, But I give to my clients is, I say, you need to have a life purpose statement, and you need to read that every single day to constantly remind you, I'm here for a reason. I'm here for a reason. And this is the reason. I'm here for a reason, because it's easy to forget and it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day. So we need to have triggers. I believe we have triggers, and we need to take advantage of them when they happen.
Well, and you use the word zombies. I always use the word sleepwalking. Like, we're just kind of sleeping through life. And, every once in a while, we need somebody to shake us. We need somebody to wake us up, or we need to find a way, or like you said, a trigger point that's going to awaken us on the inside. And, I think a lot about death. And I mean, it sounds like, you've seen some firsthand instances, and I'm sure you've lost family members, but death is like the great equalizer, right? I mean, all the things that we worry about in life, we worry about that car payment. We worry about the house payment. We worry about the kids. We worry about college. We worry about all these different things, which are justifiable things to worry about. Yet, when my mother passed away, I recall it was a very, very hard situation for me to go through. But all that stuff that she worried about at that moment in time didn't matter anymore. There was nothing to worry about, right? You didn't have to worry about that car payment, that house payment, those arguments that you might have had, or whatever it might be. Death is kind of that. And for me, I always tell people, if you're not living your life based on purpose, what you're going to do is you're going to get to that end of that life and you're going to look back and you're going to be living with regret. You're going to regret the things that you did not do, which is way, way more important than the things that you did do that didn't really matter.
I've been thinking a lot lately about the difference between achievement and alignment. And I believe what you said is 1000% spot on. So many of us are so driven towards achievement, not understanding that achievement alone is not what gives you fulfillment. That's why we have so many people who are, professional athletes or famous, and they are completely rich, but they're unfulfilled. They're unhappy. Why? They have all the achievement. They have all the accolades, but they lack alignment with what? With purpose. They lack alignment with the reason for them being here, which is the true equalizer, which is what truly gives us fulfillment. And when you lack that, but you have all the achievements, it doesn't give you the reason that you wanted the achievements in the first place, which was so you can be happy, so you can have the true freedom. So I believe what you just said is absolutely 1000% spot on.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like you will achieve. If you're aligned with your purpose, you're going to get more achievement than you know what to do with. Because once you are truly aligned, that's when you become exceptional. That's when your performance is exceptional. That's when what you're doing is exceptional. So getting those two things aligned, that's why I always say you got to lead with purpose. You'll get the achievements, but those achievements are going to mean so much more when you're aligned.
Yes, I completely agree. Absolutely 100%.
Sometimes we can aimlessly drift through our life, not really sure how to break the patterns and live the life that you've always dreamed of. I get it. I have been there, so caught up in chasing opportunities until I found myself in a life that felt foreign to me. It took me years to unwind the messy web to get back to what I've been put on this planet to do. And let me tell you this, purpose doesn't have to feel out of arm's reach. And I've designed a plan for you to do a little bit each day over the next 30 days in a challenge that I call the Outlier 30. It's specifically designed to help you find or create more clarity around your purpose. So if you're feeling lost and you want to finally turn things around and live that life that you were destined to create, sign up right now. It's free. You have absolutely nothing to lose and the whole world to gain.
Visit gorodman.com/outlier30 today.
So Jay, talk a little bit about your book, your last book. I want to hear a little bit about what readers could expect with your book.
The book is called How to Live Longer, Healthier, and Wealthier. So I talked briefly about the journey that I went through and the struggles that I was going through as I was going through my own journey of purpose. When I started, I did a ton of research because I'm such a nerd, as I like to call myself. I dug into literally hundreds of different academic journals and reading different case studies all around purpose. And how does purpose impact our life? How does purpose affect our resource allocation and our happiness and our sleep and mortality rate and so many different things? And everything that I found was so absurd to me. It was so crazy how important our purpose is. And I thought, I have to put this stuff into a book. So the first thing that you'll find out is, number one, how does purpose impact your life? You'll find out things like this crazy statistic that says if you take one person, let's call this person person A, and you take another person, let's call this person person B. Person A knows what his or her purpose in life is, and they're living it in that purpose. Person B does not know what their purpose in life is. So obviously they're not living in that purpose. Who lives longer? Studies show, like there's literal empirical evidence about this, still blows my mind when I think about it. Studies show that person A is 2.4 times more likely to live longer than person B. That is 240%. So you have a 240% chance of living longer than the person right next to you, all because you know what your purpose in life is. So you'll figure out stuff like that, and not just about longevity, but about health, less disease, better sleep, overall well-being, and things like that. And then also wealth. How does your purpose in life impact your money? Another crazy statistic around business is that purpose-driven businesses grow at an average rate of 16x in their first 5 years. Completely ridiculous compared to the other statistics around business. So you'll learn things like that. And then second of all, I go through a step-by-step process, the exact process that I use to reveal my purpose in life. Because there's a lot of talk about it, right? Most of us understand that purpose is significant. You hear a lot of people talk about your life's purpose, but you don't see a lot of people giving a step-by-step framework. So I created a step-by-step framework, and I go through that with you in the book. I'll tell you specifically how to journal. I tell you what step one is. How do you figure out the 3 Ps that surround your purpose? How do you use those 3 Ps to figure out what your calling in life is? What about what your gifts are that you need to be using to serve the world? What is your unique value that you can bring to the marketplace? The last 2 things, I go over the blueprint, what I call the blueprint. How do you design a life around your purpose? So you figure out what your purpose is. How do you design your life around that purpose? And then lastly, I go through what I call the filter, which is a series of deep questioning to be sure that what you reveal as your life's purpose is truly yours. Because what you'll find once you actually unveil and unravel this mystery of purpose, you'll look at it and you'll say, okay, is this really for me? Is this really mine? Is this truly what my purpose is? So I created what I call the filter so that people can have confidence and surety in their purpose.
You're so dead on talking about the number one, the statistics. And there's so many people too who have purpose throughout life, but then they get to a certain age and maybe their purpose fades, or maybe they don't feel like they have a purpose. And we lose a lot of those folks earlier if they don't have a purpose for being. And I've always thought that that's a shame, to see somebody who might get to a certain age where they can't do their purpose anymore. They can't. But as long as we have purpose, as long as we're breathing, we need to always be dialed in to and our purpose can evolve, but we always need to be dialed to what it is. What is it today? Who am I today? What do I want to be today? But the other thing you talked about is business, which is interesting to me. When I had all my companies, I used to have about 13 companies at once. I've had about 25 over time, way too many. Don't ever do that, by the way. But that was in my younger days. And I used to always lead with profit over purpose. I used to always look at the numbers first. How much money can we make? How much money can we make? Not, does this align with who I am on the inside? And the ones that were aligned with me did so much better than the ones that did not. The ones that didn't align with me, I hated to get up and even work in them in the morning. I hated to be doing them. If there was an issue, I didn't want to deal with the issue because it just didn't resonate with me. And so I could see the growth for entrepreneurs going significantly higher if you're aligned with purpose. Not to mention, like you said, that life by design, I love that. One of my favorite things is once I've got my purpose, how can I build my entire life around it? So when I'm getting it in the morning, it's here.
That's honestly my favorite part is what in the clients that I work with, I find that that's what they enjoy the most. That's what they're really looking forward to. People want to understand purpose. They want to know what their purpose in life is. But the reason that they really want to know what their purpose is so they can know what to do. So they can know what should be coming next. So they can have direction. So that's my favorite part. That's typically my client's favorite part as well. I like to say purpose, when you go into the process, it's kind of like building a house. You find your purpose, that's like building a foundation. If you don't have the foundation, then you can't have a rock solid house that will stand throughout the years, throughout your lifetime. And then once you figure out what your purpose is, you can create your life's mission. That's the initial phase of you building your life or you designing your life. That's like putting up the drywall. That's like putting up the frame of the house. That's like putting up the stucco on the outside of the house. And then once you have your mission, once you have your destination, then you can go about planning certain parts of your life. And that's like taking all of the furnishings that go on the inside of your house. That's like painting the inside. That's like putting the living room together and the TVs on the wall and everything. So I believe it's a whole process, but it all begins with purpose.
Hey, Jay, what are some of the obstacles that you're seeing out there in terms of some of the roadblocks people are hitting when they're going on this journey initially? What's holding people back? People that are looking to go on the journey, they're excited about it, but they're just hitting some obstacles early on. What kind of things are you seeing there?
I think from what I'm seeing when I work with my clients, one of the biggest obstacles that everybody is hitting is realizing, okay, so I've kind of gone through most of the journey and I've figured out, but I've been doing this thing for so long that it's extremely difficult for me to transform myself into this new identity. That is the most difficult part. What I always say is that going through the journey of purpose discovery is one thing, and it can be difficult at times, but going through the next step of, okay, I figured it out. Now I have to actually step into my purpose. I have to step into this new identity. I have to become me 2.0. That's the biggest hurdle. It's so difficult to go through that process of becoming a new you, mainly because you just been so stuck in your ways for so long. You know, they say it's like 80 or 90% of all of our habits, of all the things that we believe, are already set in stone by the time we're 8 years old. So if that statistic is to be true, you have to take that into consideration. If somebody is 30, 40, or even 50 years old, that means you've been living in the same habits, performing the same way with the same beliefs for, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It's difficult to unwire all those neurons, to make all those changes internally, to really stop everything that you've been building for your entire life. I've worked with a couple of chief master sergeants in the Air Force, and it's super difficult for them to transition when they get out of the military into this new idea of purpose, because for 30 years you've been in the military. Who am I outside of the uniform and how do I operate? Even though I have this new design for my life based around purpose, it's still difficult for them to step into that because they've been in the uniform for so long. So when it comes time to take it off and you now have me 2.0, how do I do that without losing myself, so to speak? If that makes sense.
It 100% does. And it's a loss of an identity. I mean, it's a shedding your skin, right? So many people get it. So many people get to the point, and it can be tough. I mean, something that you've been doing your whole life that there's a deep part of your identity, whether it was aligned with your purpose or not. But when you start to shed that skin and that part of you is dying and going away, sometimes you've got to almost grieve that a little bit, almost grieve the loss of that person that you were to really be able to accept the person that you're going to be.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, again, it's just difficult to let that go sometimes because it's so comfortable to live in who we've always been, right? To do what we've always done. But it can be a really difficult process. What I've been actually experimenting with lately, this is something that I'm actually kind of excited about, is method acting. A lot of actors, when they go to learn a new character, learn a new script, what they'll do is they will actually live life as that character for an extended period of time. They'll go into character and they'll stay in character for weeks. And the longer they stay, a lot of actors have more difficulty coming out of it. And when they come out of it, sometimes they don't know how to find who they were before they started adopting this new character. So that thought kind of intrigued me. So what I've been doing with a couple of my clients is I go through the same process that actors use in method acting to kind of adopt this new character of, you 2.0.
Yeah, and I could totally see that with and some of those method actors are incredible. I mean, they get so into the role that they do lose themselves. They don't even break character when they end the action at the end of the day. They keep going and they keep living that character out. That makes total sense. I see that too with a lot of people who hit pinnacles in their career. Like they might have a ultimate achievement where they've hit the top of their career. I've got a friend of mine who's in Major League Baseball, was in Major League Baseball as a pitcher for 20 years, retired at age 40, so he's still young. And now everything that he has known, everything that he is, everything that he was up to that point has changed. And he's sitting there now trying to figure out, who am I? And what is my purpose now moving forward?
Yeah, so Rodman, up until this point, I believe we've been talking really strategically about purpose, about how it affects your everyday life, about how we can go about finding those triggers and changing into the purpose mindset. But what about the people who have already had the triggers, who have already experienced the shift in mindset? What is the next step for them? What I want to do is give your audience some tactical tips that they can use to really begin their process of figuring out what their purpose is in their life. So what I do with my clients is I give them what I call the 3 Ps. So here's the 3 Ps. As I'm going through the documentation phase with them, trying to build that mirror, what we're looking to find is, number 1, what is your pain? What are the things about our world that really stirs up frustration inside of you, that really makes you think, I would absolutely love to make this change in the world? What are the injustices? What are the wrongs in the world that really cause you to be angry, to be frustrated, to go into an emotional state where you want to make a difference? I go through taking my clients on a journey of how do I figure out what that is for me? That's the first P. The second P is production. Naturally, we all have gifts, we all have talents, and we all have skills. Some skills come to us a lot more easier than other people. And I'll tell you, a lot of people believe that the things that come easy to them come easy for other people too, but they absolutely do not. There are certain things that you are naturally gifted with that other people just don't have. And you have to be able to recognize those things inside of you, and you have to be able to find them. So that's the second P. First P is pain, the second P is production. And the last P is passions. What are the things that really light you up, that really put you into a state of flow? What are the things that give you energy? What are the things that you absolutely love to do that you could do all day long, every single day? If you could figure out what those 3 Ps are, and the tactical step is, if you can journal about those 3, figure out what they are, that is the foundation of how you figure out what your purpose is. And what I do with my clients is, once we figure out those Ps, now we can go to the next step of figuring out what's your gift. What is your calling? What is the unique value that you can bring to the marketplace? And then we can converge all 6 of those elements, the 3 Ps, your gift, your calling, and your value, to figure out what your purpose is.
It's just leaning into your superpowers. And you're dead on. So many people, they don't even see their own superpowers because they're so close to them. They get up every day and they're going through their life doing these things. They don't realize how gifted they are in these areas. And there's somebody out in that world that they could teach, that wants to know what they can give to them or how they can help them also be super. So I think that those are fantastic Ps and very actionable. So glad to hear pieces like that where people can take actionable steps to be incredible in life. So thank you for providing those. But Jay, I want people to be able to find you. I know that you've got so much good information and that you've got so much to give to people. And I want to be able to find your book. I want to be able to get people to a place where they can find out more about you and what you teach. Where do they need to go?
I'll tell you the number one place that people can go to figure out more about me if you want to tap into what we have coming up, our events, some of the resources that we have to give for free. If you go to my website, it's www.thepurposepad.com. Go there, and if you're going to do anything on the website, make sure you take the purpose assessment. What the purpose assessment does for you is it'll tell you exactly where you are in your pursuit, of purpose. It'll tell you exactly where you are so that you know where you need to go next to get to the objective, which is discovering what your purpose is and then designing a life around purpose. So go take that purpose assessment. It's 100% free. It takes less than 5 minutes for you to take. So invest in you.
Definitely. And like I said, you've got so much to give, Jay, and I'm so excited that you are on the show. I do have one last question for you. I ask this of every single person who comes on the show. But if you could go back in time and sit down with your younger self and give yourself one piece of the most valuable advice that you have, what would that advice be for your younger self?
I'll tell you one thing that I struggle with, and I believe a lot of other people struggle with as well. And it is the one thing everybody who's ever had success has had to embody, has had to take in. And that one thing is confidence. Whatever it is for you that is causing you to stay where you are, to not pursue the life that you are destined to live. For some people, it's fear. For some people, it's indecision. It may be doubt. It may be limiting beliefs that's holding you back. You have to have confidence that you have the ability, that you have the grit and the fortitude to really live out your dream life. For me, when I was younger, I had a horrible problem stuttering. I'm talking horrible. I got teased a lot, and it was so bad that I completely stopped talking, and the people in my family and at church thought I was a mute. So I had difficulty really stepping out and becoming a leader in the military, really becoming a leader in my family, with my kids, communicating with my wife. It affected everything in my life. And if I could go back, I would say, listen, Jay, you have a responsibility to step out and become the best version of yourself, because there's other people that are depending on you to step into that version of you. And if you don't, they will never have the confidence to step into their purpose and live out their destiny. So you absolutely have to have the confidence that it takes to know that you have the ability to step into your purpose and become who it is that God has destined for you to become.
That's powerful. Hey, Jay, you are an incredible human being. Thank you for being on the show today, and thanks for sharing your gifts with the world.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Rodman. It's been a blast.